The fluorescent lights of the conference room buzzed overhead as Marcus Reed signed his name on the termination document. His hand did not tremble. His face betrayed nothing. Across the table, the HR representative avoided his eyes, sliding the severance packet toward him like it might burn. 12 years of service reduced to a manila envelope and a security escort to his car. That evening, when his 7-year-old daughter Lily asked why he was home early, Marcus knelt to her level and smiled. "Just changing jobs, sweetheart. Nothing to worry about." Across the city, in a corner office 43 floors above the street, Victoria Ashford reviewed the quarterly efficiency report. Her signature had authorized 312 terminations that month. Marcus Reed was number 247. She should have moved on to the next page immediately. Instead, her gaze lingered on his name longer than it should have. The first rejection came within a week. Marcus had applied to Hendricks Engineering, a mid-sized firm where he knew the hiring manager from industry conferences. The phone call lasted less than 2 minutes. "I'm sorry, Marcus. Really. But we've received some concerning information from your previous employer." "Internal issues," they said. "I can't take the risk." He thanked the man and hung up. The second rejection followed the same pattern. Then the third. By the fourth week, Marcus stopped expecting anything different. He adjusted his resume, removed the Ashford Industries header, tried smaller companies that might not check references so thoroughly. The responses were always the same polite decline, the same vague references to concerns they couldn't specify. Lily noticed the changes before he said anything. She was perceptive in the way only children who have already lost too much can be. Her mother had passed 3 years ago, and since then, Lily had developed an almost supernatural awareness of her father's moods. She noticed how the music stopped playing during dinner, how the evening conversations grew shorter, how her father's laughter, once so easy, now required visible effort. One night, she climbed onto the couch beside him and pressed her small body against his arm. "Daddy, are you sad?" Marcus looked down at her, at the concern creasing her young face, and felt something crack in his chest. "Just tired, sweetheart. Grown-up tired. Is it because of work?" He considered lying. He had been lying for weeks, maintaining the fiction that everything was fine, that the job search was going well, that their savings would last forever. But Lily deserved better than comfortable lies. "Work is a little hard right now," he admitted. "But I'm figuring it out." She nodded slowly, processing this information with the gravity of a much older soul. "I can help. I can make dinner sometimes. And I don't need new shoes this year." The offer nearly broke him. He pulled her close and pressed his lips to the top of her head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "You don't need to do anything, except be you. That's the only job you have." Across town, Victoria Ashford presided over her weekly executive meeting with the same cold efficiency that had built her empire. Ashford Industries had grown from her father's modest manufacturing company into a multinational conglomerate under her leadership. She had made difficult decisions before. Thousands of them. The restructuring that had eliminated Marcus Reed's position was necessary for the company's survival. The shareholders demanded results. The board expected growth. Sentiment had no place in the equations that determined success. Yet, something nagged at her during the presentation on third-quarter projections. A name she couldn't quite shake. A file she had reviewed more carefully than usual. When her assistant mentioned that several former employees had filed complaints about being blacklisted from the industry, Victoria's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Handle it through legal," she said. Standard procedure. She did not ask which employees. She did not want to know. The coffee shop on Maple Street had become Marcus's office. He couldn't afford to heat the apartment during the day anymore, so he nursed a single cup for hours while sending out applications on his laptop. The baristas knew him by now. They had stopped asking if he wanted anything else. Small mercies. It was there, hunched over another rejection email, that Marcus first heard the rumor. Tom Vasquez, a former colleague from Ashford Industries, spotted him through the window, and came inside. They exchanged the usual pleasantries, the awkward dance of people who once worked together and now existed in different worlds. "I probably shouldn't tell you this," Tom said, lowering his voice, "but I heard something about why you were really let go." Marcus set down his coffee. "I assumed it was the restructuring. The efficiency initiative." Tom shook his head. "That's the official story. But someone in HR mentioned your name was flagged before the cuts were announced. Something about a report you filed. Or didn't file. They made it sound like you were responsible for the Henderson Project failure." "The Henderson Project?" Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "I wasn't even on that team. I flagged the problems with their timeline 6 months before it collapsed." "I know." Tom glanced around nervously. "That's what doesn't add up. Someone rewrote the narrative, Marcus. And whoever did it made sure your name ended up on every blacklist in the industry." After Tom left, Marcus sat motionless for a long time. The Henderson Project had been a disaster, a $12 million failure that had embarrassed the company and cost several executives their bonuses. He remembered writing the memo that predicted exactly what would go wrong. He remembered sending it to his supervisor, who had assured him it would reach the appropriate channels. Now he understood. The memo had reached someone, all right. Someone who needed a scapegoat when the project imploded. Someone who had decided that Marcus Reed, with his inconvenient predictions and his paper trail of warnings, was the perfect candidate to absorb the blame. The question was whether Victoria Ashford knew, whether she had personally ordered his destruction, or whether she had simply signed off on it without looking too closely. Either way, the result was the same. His career was in ruins, his reputation was destroyed, and somewhere in that gleaming tower downtown, the people responsible were collecting their quarterly bonuses. Victoria reviewed the Henderson file that evening, alone in her office, long after everyone else had gone home. She told herself it was routine due diligence, a CEO's responsibility to understand past failures. But something about the documentation felt wrong. The report identifying Marcus Reed as the primary source of the project's collapse was comprehensive, detailed, damning, too comprehensive, too detailed. She pulled the original project files and began cross-referencing. 3 hours later, she found the first discrepancy, a memo dated 6 months before the collapse, buried in an archive folder that should have been purged. The author was Marcus Reed. The content was a precise prediction of every failure that would eventually occur. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she read. This man had tried to warn them, had documented everything, had done exactly what a responsible employee should do, and someone had buried his warnings, then buried him along with them. She should have investigated further, should have demanded answers. Instead, she closed the file and told herself it was too late to change anything. The decision had been made. The terminations had been finalized. Reopening the case would raise questions about her own oversight, her own responsibility for not catching the manipulation sooner. She left the office at midnight and did not sleep until nearly dawn. The farmer's market on Saturday mornings had become Lily's favorite outing. Not because she particularly loved vegetables, but because it gave her father a reason to leave the apartment. She had noticed how he spent more time inside lately, how the circles under his eyes had grown darker, how he sometimes sat staring at nothing for minutes at a time. So she pulled him through the crowds of the market, past the organic produce and the artisanal bread, chattering about everything and nothing. She was telling him about a book she was reading when she collided with a woman carrying a bag of apples. The apples scattered across the pavement. Lily immediately dropped to her knees to gather them, apologizing profusely in the way her father had taught her. The woman knelt as well, and for a moment, their hands reached for the same piece of fruit. "It's quite all right," the woman said. Her voice was measured, controlled, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Accidents happen." Marcus looked up from the apple in his hand and found himself facing a woman in casual clothes that probably cost more than his monthly rent. She was perhaps 40, with sharp features and intelligent eyes that seemed to assess everything they touched. Something about her felt familiar, though he couldn't place it. "I apologize," he said. "She gets excited about market days. Children should be excited about something." The woman accepted the apples they had gathered and straightened. Her gaze moved from Marcus to Lily and back again, lingering on the frayed collar of his jacket, the scuffed toes of his shoes. He felt suddenly transparent, all his struggles visible to this stranger's appraising eyes. "Life is short," the woman continued. "Joy should be taken where it's found." Something in her tone struck Marcus wrong. It sounded like philosophy dispensed from on high, wisdom offered by someone who had never missed a meal or worried about an electric bill. "Easy to say," he replied quietly, "when you're not the one struggling to find it." The woman's expression flickered. "Not offense, exactly. Something more complicated. You'd be surprised what people struggle with. Money doesn't solve everything." "No," Marcus agreed, "but it solves a lot. It solves heat in the winter. It solves dinner on the table. It solves not having to explain to your daughter why her life is falling apart because someone with power decided to destroy yours." He hadn't meant to say so much. The words had escaped before he could stop them. Weeks of frustration and helplessness finally finding an outlet. The woman stared at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. "I'm sorry," she said finally, "for whatever happened to you. Are you?" Marcus heard the bitterness in his own voice and hated it. Or is that just what people say when they want to feel better about walking away? She had no answer for that. Or if she did, she chose not to give it. She gathered her things and disappeared into the crowd, leaving Marcus with the strange sensation of having both won and lost something he couldn't name. Lily tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, who was that lady?" "Nobody, sweetheart. Just a stranger." But Lily kept watching the woman's retreating figure, her young face creased with concentration. She had seen that woman before, somewhere. She was certain of it. It came to her that night, lying in bed while her father thought she was asleep. The news program he sometimes watched in the evening. A story about business and money and a company called Ashford. The woman's face had been on the screen, and the reporter had called her Victoria Ashford, one of the richest women in America. Lily didn't understand exactly what that meant, but she understood that the lady with the apples was important, and she understood, with a child's intuitive clarity, that this was connected somehow to why her father was so sad. She didn't tell him. Not yet. Some knowledge felt too heavy to share. Victoria returned to her penthouse that evening and poured herself a glass of wine she did not drink. The encounter at the farmer's market replayed in her mind on an endless loop. The man's face, his voice, the raw pain beneath his controlled exterior. She had recognized him, of course. Not immediately, but by the time he spoke about someone with power destroying his life, she had placed the familiar features. Marcus Reed, employee number 247, the man whose career she had ended with a signature. What she hadn't expected was the impact of seeing him in person. Files and reports reduced people to data points, statistics, acceptable losses in the larger equation of corporate survival. They didn't show the frayed collars and scuffed shoes. They didn't show the daughter with her father's eyes and her mother's stubbornness. They didn't show the weight of destroyed hopes pressing down on human shoulders. Victoria pulled up his file again on her tablet. This time, she didn't stop at the termination documents. She dug deeper, into the original Henderson Project records, into the buried memo she had found before, into the performance reviews that had been glowing until suddenly they weren't. The pattern was clear once she knew what to look for. Marcus Reed had been systematically erased from the company's successes and inserted into its failures. Someone had spent considerable effort constructing a narrative that made him the villain, someone with access to personnel files and the authority to alter official records. She made a list of people with that access. It was short, and one name appeared more often than the others. The next morning, Victoria summoned her chief operating officer, Daniel Mercer, to her office. Daniel had been with the company for 15 years, had risen through the ranks by being useful in ways that didn't always appear on organizational charts. He had overseen the Henderson project. He had recommended the restructuring that eliminated Marcus Reed's position. "The Reed termination," Victoria said without preamble. "Walk me through it again." Daniel's smile didn't waver. "Standard efficiency measure. His department was redundant after the reorganization. Nothing personal. And the blacklisting? The industry-wide freeze on his employment?" A slight pause, barely perceptible. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Don't." Victoria's voice was ice. "I've seen the communications, the calls to HR departments at our competitors, the warnings about internal issues and reliability concerns." Daniel's smile finally faded. The man was a troublemaker. He filed reports that embarrassed leadership. He created paper trails that made people uncomfortable. He predicted the Henderson failure 6 months before it happened. He tried to warn us. He tried to cover himself, to position himself as the hero who saw it coming while everyone else failed. Victoria studied her COO with new eyes. She had trusted this man, had relied on his judgment, had signed documents he placed in front of her without questioning too carefully. "Get out," she said quietly. "Clear your desk by end of day. Legal will be in touch about your severance. You can't be serious." Daniel's composure cracked. "Over one terminated employee? Over a nobody?" "Over lies," Victoria replied. "Over manipulation. Over the destruction of an innocent man's career to cover your own failures. Get out before I have security escort you." After he left, Victoria sat alone in her office for a long time. Firing Daniel was satisfying, but it solved nothing. The damage to Marcus Reed was already done. The blacklist was already in place. His reputation was already destroyed. She could make calls, could try to undo what had been done, but she knew how these things worked. Once someone was marked as problematic, the stain never fully washed out. Companies would always wonder. Hiring managers would always hesitate. The only real solution was to admit publicly what had happened, to acknowledge that Ashford Industries had wrongfully terminated an employee and deliberately sabotaged his career, to accept responsibility for a failure of leadership that went all the way to the top, to her. Marcus found the envelope in his mailbox 3 days later. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. "You were right about Henderson. The truth is coming out. Someone owes you more than an apology." He read it 3 times, trying to understand. Then he turned on his computer and searched for news about Ashford Industries. The headlines told the story. COO terminated amid internal investigation. Ashford Industries acknowledges wrongful termination. Company promises review of efficiency program. His phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Reed? This is Victoria Ashford's office. She would like to schedule a meeting at your earliest convenience." Marcus hung up without answering. The phone rang again the next day. And the next. He ignored each call. He wasn't sure what he was feeling anymore. The vindication he had imagined, the moment when the truth would finally come out, felt hollow now that it was actually happening. What good was being right when his life was still in ruins? What comfort was there in knowing who to blame when blaming them changed nothing? Lily noticed his mood darkening further. "Daddy, aren't you happy? You said work was hard because of bad people. Now the bad people are in trouble." Marcus pulled her onto his lap. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes even when bad things get fixed, the hurt doesn't go away right away. But it will go away eventually, right?" He couldn't answer that. He honestly didn't know. Victoria stood outside Marcus Reed's apartment building for 20 minutes before working up the courage to approach the door. She had never done this before, never lowered herself to chase someone who wanted nothing to do with her. In her world, people came to her. They waited on her schedule, accommodated her preferences, shaped their lives around her convenience. But this was different. This wasn't business. This was something she had broken and needed to fix. The rain had started an hour ago. a cold October drizzle that soaked through her designer coat and plastered her hair to her forehead. She had left her driver 2 blocks away, had dismissed her assistant for the evening. There was no one to witness this moment except herself and whatever God might be watching. She pressed the buzzer for apartment 412, waited, pressed it again. The intercom crackled. "Who is it?" "Victoria Ashford." "Please, I just want to talk." A long pause. She could imagine him standing inside, hand on the receiver, weighing whether to respond at all. "I have nothing to say to you." "Then let me say something to you." Another pause, longer this time. Finally, the door buzzed open. The apartment was small and clean, decorated with the careful economy of someone who had learned to value what they had. Books lined makeshift shelves. A child's drawings covered the refrigerator. The furniture was old but well-maintained, the kind of things passed down through generations. Marcus stood in the center of the living room, arms crossed, face carefully neutral. Behind him, in the doorway to what was probably a bedroom, a small face watched with wide, curious eyes. "You have 5 minutes," Marcus said. Victoria had prepared a speech, had rehearsed it in the car, refined it in her office, practiced the exact words she would use to explain, apologize, make amends. Now, standing in this modest room with its second-hand furniture and refrigerator drawings, all of her careful preparations evaporated. "I destroyed your life," she said. "I didn't know I was doing it. I didn't ask the right questions. I trusted people I shouldn't have trusted, and signed documents I should have read more carefully. None of that excuses anything. You suffered because of my failure. Your daughter suffered. I don't know how to make that right." Marcus said nothing. His expression remained unchanged. "I fired the man responsible," Victoria continued. "Daniel Mercer. He orchestrated everything. The false reports, the blacklist, the destruction of your reputation. He needed a scapegoat for Henderson, and you were convenient. I know." Marcus's voice was flat. "I read the news. I've contacted every company you applied to, corrected the record, withdrawn the warnings about your reliability. You should start hearing back from them soon. Should I thank you for undoing what you did?" The question hung in the air between them. Victoria had expected anger, had prepared for shouting, accusations, perhaps even violence. This calm, measured contempt was worse. "No," she admitted, "you shouldn't. I'm not here to be thanked. I'm here because I needed you to know the truth, and because I needed to see what I had done, not as a name on a report, as a person, as a father." Her voice cracked slightly. "I needed to know who I destroyed." For the first time, something shifted in Marcus's expression. Not softening, exactly, but a recognition of something genuine beneath her carefully constructed exterior. "Now you know," he said. "Is that all?" Victoria looked around the apartment again, at the books and the drawings and the small face still watching from the doorway, at the evidence of a life built on love rather than wealth, on connection rather than power. "If I had known who I was destroying," she said quietly, "I would have stopped myself. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know saying it changes nothing. But it's true, and I'm more sorry than I know how to express." Marcus was silent for a long time. The rain continued outside, a steady rhythm against the windows. Finally, he spoke. "I believe you. That you're sorry. That you didn't know." He paused. "But believing you doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give back the months I spent wondering what I did wrong. It doesn't erase the nights my daughter went to bed worried about money. It doesn't restore my faith in a system that let one person destroy another without consequences. I know. Do you? Do you understand what it's like to watch your child try to take care of you because she thinks you can't take care of yourself? Do you understand the weight of her looking at you like you're broken, like she needs to hold you together?" Victoria thought of her own childhood, of a father who had built an empire but never learned how to say he was proud of her. Of a mother who had measured love and obligations met and expectations exceeded. Of all the ways wealth had insulated her from ordinary human struggles while creating its own particular varieties of pain. "No," she admitted. "I don't understand that specific weight. But I understand being looked at like you're broken. I understand people needing things from you that you don't know how to give." The small face in the doorway emerged fully. Lily walked to her father's side and looked up at Victoria with an expression far too knowing for a 7-year-old. "You're the lady from the market," Lily said. "The one with the apples. Yes, you made my daddy sad. But you look sad too." Victoria felt something crack in her chest. The same thing Marcus had felt, perhaps, when his daughter offered to skip new shoes. "I am sad," she admitted. "I did something wrong, and now I'm trying to figure out how to make it right." Lily considered this. "Sometimes, when I do something wrong, my daddy says the first step is saying sorry. The second step is not doing it again, and the third step is trying to fix what you broke." Victoria looked at this child, this impossibly wise small person who had probably never held more than $20 at once, and felt the full weight of her own moral poverty. "That's very good advice," she said. "Your daddy taught you well. He teaches me lots of things." Lily's voice carried a fierce protectiveness. "He's the best daddy in the whole world. Even when things are hard. You should know that. He didn't do anything wrong. He's good." "I know," Victoria said. "I know he is." She looked at Marcus, whose expression had finally softened slightly at his daughter's defense of him. "I should go. I've taken more than my 5 minutes. Wait." Marcus's voice stopped her at the door. "What happens now? You fixed the blacklist. You fired Mercer. What comes next for you?" "I don't know," Victoria admitted. "The board is meeting next week. They're not happy about the publicity, about admitting fault. It's possible they'll ask for my resignation, and you'll give it? If that's what it takes to make this right?" "Yes, I'll give it." She left without waiting for a response. The rain had intensified, washing the streets clean, and she stood in it for a moment before walking to her car. Tomorrow, she would face the board, face the consequences. But tonight, she had done the one thing she came to do. She had let herself be seen, truly seen, by the man she had wronged and the daughter who loved him. And something in that seeing had changed her in ways she didn't yet understand. The board meeting lasted 4 hours. Victoria had prepared her statement, had gathered the evidence of Mercer's manipulation, had documented every step she had taken to correct the wrong. But in the end, the numbers spoke louder than her explanations. The company's stock had dropped 3% on news of the scandal. Investor confidence was shaken. The board wanted someone to blame, and Victoria was the most visible target. She resigned at the end of the meeting. Not because they forced her, but because she realized she no longer wanted to fight for something that felt so hollow. The empire she had built, the power she had accumulated, the reputation she had cultivated, all of it suddenly felt like armor she had worn so long she had forgotten what her own skin felt like. 2 weeks later, she stood at Marcus Reed's door again. This time, the sun was shining. This time, she wore jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. This time, she had nothing to offer except herself. Marcus answered on the second knock. He looked different somehow, less burdened. The circles under his eyes had faded. "I heard about the resignation," he said. "It's all over the news." "Yes, well. Turns out, watching your company's reputation crumble puts things in perspective. What will you do now?" Victoria smiled, a genuine expression that felt unfamiliar on her face. "I don't know. It's terrifying and wonderful not knowing. I've spent my whole life planning and controlling, having everything mapped out years in advance. Now I wake up and the day is just empty space waiting to be filled. That sounds like freedom. It feels like vertigo. But maybe that's the same thing." She hesitated, then continued. "I wanted to ask you something, not about business or jobs or anything professional. Just a question. Ask. I'm starting something new. A foundation, maybe. Something that helps people who got caught in corporate systems that chewed them up and spit them out. People like you, but I don't know how to do it right. I've only ever seen things from the top. I don't know what it looks like from where you were standing. Marcus studied her face for a long moment. You want my help. I want your perspective, your honesty. Someone who will tell me when I'm getting it wrong. She paused. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I'm asking if you'd be willing to help me try to make sure it doesn't happen to someone else. The question hung between them, heavy with everything that had passed before. Come in, Marcus said finally. Lily's at school, but she'll be home in an hour. Stay for dinner. We can talk about it then. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a promise. But it was a door opening instead of closing, and Victoria stepped through it before either of them could change their mind. Months later, Lily would ask her father why he had let the lady stay, why he hadn't stayed angry forever. He would tell her the truth, which was that staying angry took energy he needed for other things, that holding on to pain only gave it power, that people could change, could grow, could become better versions of themselves if someone was willing to give them the chance. But she hurt you, Lily said. She made everything hard. She did. And I'm not going to pretend that was okay or that it didn't matter. But she also tried to fix it. She gave up everything she had to make it right. And at some point, I had to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. Someone who punished forever. Or someone who could let go and move forward. Are you glad you let go? Marcus considered the question. The foundation was running now, had already helped dozens of people rebuild careers that had been unfairly destroyed. Victoria worked alongside him as an equal, no longer the powerful executive, but a partner learning to see the world differently. They had become friends, somehow. Maybe something more. Eventually, the future was unwritten. Yeah, he said. I'm glad. The dinner that night was simple. Pasta from a box, salad from a bag, bread from the bakery down the street. They sat around a small table in a small kitchen in a small apartment. 3 people who had found each other through pain and were learning to build something new from the wreckage. Victoria had never eaten a meal that mattered more. Every bite tasted like second chances, like grace that couldn't be earned but could be accepted, like the beginning of something that didn't have a name yet but deserved one. Lily told stories about school. Marcus shared updates about job interviews that were finally going well. Victoria listened more than she spoke, learning the rhythm of this family. The small jokes and tender silences that made up a life built on love rather than ambition. When it was time to leave, Lily hugged her goodbye. It was the first time the child had touched her voluntarily, and Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. You can come back, Lily said. Daddy says you're trying to be better. I think you are. Thank you, Victoria managed. That means more than you know. She walked to her car in the cool evening air, feeling lighter than she had in years. The penthouse waited for her, empty and vast and full of expensive things that meant nothing. Soon she would sell it, would move somewhere smaller, somewhere that felt like a home instead of a monument to success. But that was tomorrow's decision. Tonight, she had something better than wealth. She had a place at a table with people who saw her clearly and chose to let her stay, not because of what she could give them, but because of who she was trying to become. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. Maybe not ever, in the complete sense. Some wounds left scars that never fully faded, but it was something equally precious. It was a chance. A beginning. A door that had been opened and left open, waiting to see what would walk through. Marcus stood at his window and watched her car pull away. Lily pressed against his side, warm and solid and alive. I like her, Lily announced. No. Marcus agreed. She's not. Do you think she'll keep coming back? He thought about the question. About the months of pain and the slow process of rebuilding. About the woman who had destroyed him and then destroyed herself, trying to make it right. About the strange, impossible thing that happens when two people decide to start over instead of staying stuck in the stories that hurt them. "I think so," he said. "I hope so." Outside, the stars were coming out. Somewhere in the city, Victoria Ashford was driving home to an empty apartment that wouldn't feel empty much longer. Somewhere, a foundation was helping people put their lives back together. Somewhere, the world was a little less broken than it had been yesterday. And in a small apartment on the 4th floor, a father and daughter stood together at the window, watching the night settle over the city, ready for whatever came next.